when you go to the hardware store and you get washers and you take the bolt to get them, don't forget the bolt at the hardware store. So we've reached a point where I said earlier, it's either gonna go poof or it's gonna go vroom. Let's see what it does.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
All right, so we're back from lunch and they're rounding up bolts right now. But something happened that was pretty cool at lunch, at least pretty cool to us. When we created this channel, we weren't anticipating becoming anything, famous or notoriety. We just wanted to help people and we're having fun doing it. I mean, we're in the shop anyway, so we're having some fun with this. That we have now achieved 400 subscribers is super cool. I mean, we're so happy about that. So Pat Douglas Barron, thank you for becoming our 400th subscriber. We're super close to 500, which means that we could maybe consider doing the super chats and other stuff like that. I mean, wouldn't it be cool that when we fired up the M715, we did a super chat on that date, let you guys all hang out and see that? Oh, that'd be fun. Anyway, thank you very much.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
All right, as I say, new day in the shop. It's a week later. We've waited for parts to arrive. We've had to mull over the whole tensioner bolt thing. That's going to be a challenge for today. We have a new fan to install, a new fan clutch, the new starter, the new kit from K-Suspension for the Viper mod bracket. That's going in. And then I think we're probably close to firing this thing up and seeing how the new electrical does. It's either going to go boop or it's going to go vroom. One of the two. So we just removed the air cleaner. And next, we're going to start with the K-Suspension bracket first. We're replacing it because I happen to have purchased this so early, it was a first generation of this particular bracket. And it had a weak point. Well, K-Suspension has improved the bracket, and we're going to show you that once we get this bracket off.
What's that, about the 8th thing I've knocked down now?
Possibly. We both keep doing that.
It's good to have a fender that can act as a tool shelf. The bad news is it's easy to knock stuff off the tool shelf.
Yes, Kenneth is still one-armed. He is now just a little over 2 weeks post-surgical and doing quite well.
You gotta pull that red tab out a little bit and then you gotta squeeze. There it goes.
Difference between version 1, version 2, largely the same, but this is the problem area. Look how it broke off there. This is substantially thicker and should hold up a lot better with a lot more material around that plug. So I know earlier in this video, actually last week, I actually commented that K-Suspension's customer service is just so good. And this is an example of it. I just sent him a picture that, showed him that, hey, I'm really glad I'm putting this new cabling kit in. We did notice that this bracket was broke, but we sandwiched it with some washers. We think it's going to be okay. In the mail arrives a brand new bracket. Thank you, K-Suspension, for taking care of your customers. We really do appreciate that.
So one Dodge Viper coil. Yeah. They give us a nice bracket. It bolts up right near where the ignition coil pack bolts in, and it just holds the bracket because it's a big piece of sheet metal sticking up. And I think probably what contributed to the failure is that it was flopping a little bit, and this just gives it a little bit of extra reinforcement to solidly hold it in place.
Agreed.
Do we have a tap that we can use?
Not a surprise that some of these things need to be tapped.
That held the original coil packs has been removed for a significant amount of time, and the bolt holes were just left open, and so dirt and gunk gets into the threads. And so I just want to make sure that it's all clean before we get it in. Yeah, okay. just a thread chase, tap, something, just anything, but it's an M8 by 125. All right, so that's started, but I'm going to leave it loose. So if you look down in here, you can see this boss right there, and then, oh, it's way down here. That's the German calibration. Good and tight. Engineer counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can do that. Where's my plug? You just got to sort through, figure out which wire is which.
And when you're getting this Viper coil mod for the first time, obviously the ignition coil wires, there would be all sorts of not right sized right.
Yeah.
So K Suspension sells the appropriate sized wires to fit, which is nice to have in the kit.
All right. 9 is the number after 8.
Alrighty.
Yeah, we just went and saw Christopher Titus last night, and that was one of his bits.
So we now have this bracket in place. We can check that off the to-do list. What are we moving on to next, Roy?
I don't know, what are we moving off to next, April?
I think April should have to install her starter.
I think April should have to install her starter too.
They're being kind of mean, but you know what? They're also right. All right, so we're going to talk starters now. This is the one that came out of Penny. The bendix on this one is making a ton of noise, and I've just decided that while we're doing all of this, we're going to replace it. I went with a PA Performance starter. This is sourced from Extreme Terrain, but you can actually get it from a variety of places. This one, they say it's all brand new parts, so this is not a remanufactured starter. It is for the manual transmission, so check mark on that. And also, it is a high torque starter as opposed to the OEM one. So it should handle penny starts a little bit better over time. But it is not identical. And Roy's going to show you what he means.
So, on a regular starter, this is basically a solenoid. It's an electrical switch for a high amp draw. And so you put the power wire from the battery right here, and then you have a small signal wire, and when you actually turn the key, that sends electricity to this, which causes this switch to close, which lets power come through and go to the electric motor. That's all great. Both of them have that basically the same. The problem is, this is a screw terminal, and so there's a screw that holds the wire on.
And I'm assuming the wire just has a loop?
Yeah, it's got a ring terminal,
Okay,
just
that's
like
what I
any
meant.
normal ring terminal. Problem is, this is a blade terminal.
I see that.
So, I mean, it's the same, battery wire goes here, wire current to the electric motor. So we have to cut off the ring terminal and crimp on a blade terminal. And that's going to be a little easier when we lift the Jeep, so we're going to actually postpone putting the starter in until after we get some of the other stuff.
All right, Kenneth, so if we aren't going to be lifting the Jeep quite yet, what do we go on to next?
Are we to a point where we can put the serpentine and fan shroud back together?
No.
No?
No, because
Because
We have a new tensioner and idler pulley to put on. And it's a whole lot easier to put those on before you put the fan in place.
So we're going to be fighting something a little unique here, and I'll get Roy here to grab it and show you what.
So this is a standard belt tensioner. It's got two prongs that line up in the bracket. It's actually in the alternator bracket, and then you have a bolt that goes through that holds it in place. The problem is the bolt is not as big as the hole,
smaller than the hole.
but it has this real handy shoulder that lines up with the perimeter of the hole, and that keeps it lined up so it's not wiggling around in a weird way. The biggest problem with this bolt,
And that's that bolt specifically?
yes, and this is a one-off bolt. You're not going to find this anywhere because nobody makes them.
Yeah, it's a
Nobody
Mopar,
sells them. It's a Mopar thing that's out of production. But I think somebody's still making them because you can buy a tensioner with a bolt. But only the cheap tensioners come with a bolt. But yeah, the biggest problem, this used to be a T40. But somebody, probably more than once, has jammed a hex head Allen key into it and boogered it up. So trying to get the right tool to spin this is a challenge because it's a little boogered up. And we decided, since we might have some plans for some engine mods, just little engine mods coming in the future, this new tensioner, because we bought a quality one, we're going to put it in and we're never going to have to take it out again because we're never going to wear it out before we do the other engines. We're doing this on the vise to keep it straight, and that's in. So a little blue Loctite.
What'd you find for a torque spec?
30 foot-pounds, which makes sense for something that is going into an aluminum bracket.
This feels like something we thought about like 10 times longer than it took to actually do.
You think?
Yeah.
Engineers overthinking things?
Yeah.
So this one actually has kind of something along the same plane. It's got this little spacer that's got a machined portion and bolt, and it actually sits in there and spaces the pulley out exactly where it needs to be. And yeah, this pulley definitely is shot. You can, if you spin it by hand, you can't hear it on the video, but it's shot. So
Kenneth, what did you bring out here? A manual? You kids still using the manual?
But yeah, this.
It's an old Jeep, so the documentation is old school.
There you go. But yeah, so this bolt obviously is not big enough, but this sits in place and centers the bolt correctly, and it actually has a little retaining bit on it, so you kind of spin it down a little bit by hand. Didn't need quite as much coverage as I thought. Okay, so that goes around there.
And as a reminder, this belt happens to be 1/2 inch shorter. It's actually for a Mazda.
Yeah.
And this is because the pulley on the new alternator is smaller. And if we had gone with the stock size, it would have flopped and loosened and flew off.
Okay.
Brand new serpentine belt. So I think our next two things to install are two things that weren't part of the original plan. That would be the new fan clutch and the new fan blade.
Which, per what we've read online, have to be installed concurrent to the shroud.
Yes, everything has to be put in.
And no, as far as we know, there's nothing wrong with her fan clutch. And the OEM fan, okay, you might remember she's been overheating every once in a while.
I still think it's a fan clutch.
Okay. We are going to a 9-blade fan. This has been recommended a lot on several TJ groups. And we managed to snag one last weekend, and it should give her a lot better airflow. And also, I mean, just getting the upgraded fan clutch, as Roy says, is probably going to help me a lot so that I can run the air conditioner while I'm stationary.
Yeah, unboxing video.
New parts. Looks like a clutch fan.
Fan clutch. Yeah. So, ordinary standard fan clutch. And if you don't know how these work, I'll give you just the 2-second thing. So, the fan bolts to the body with these 4 bolts. This guy can actually spin. It goes in, and inside there is a fluid of some kind. I'm not sure what you know, how the chemistry is. But as this gets hotter, the fluid turns more into a solid. And what that means is that when the engine is cold, when there's not a lot of hot air coming through the radiator, this will loosen up and let the fan slip quite a bit, and so it's not pushing as much air. But as it gets hotter, as you get more hot air coming through the radiator, hot water to the radiator, then air through, heating this up, this then gets tighter and harder to spin, which actually ends up making the fan spin at full speed. And it's a totally mechanical system. There's no electrics, there's nothing fancy, but that's how a fan clutch, an old school mechanical fan clutch, works. More blades are going to move more air.
Does it seem like the blades on that one aren't exactly symmetrical all the way around?
They are not.
Interesting.
They don't
Done to control noise.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, it creates rather than a consistent or symmetric sound wave, it creates one that varies. And you get destructive interference.
Interesting. So a quieter fan.
That was going to be the next thing that was asked for.
And he will probably need your hands, April.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? The fan shroud still has Penny's original green paint on it.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly how much help I need, but yeah. Other way. Yeah. Okay.
Oh. Actually, the deal with the screw in the overflow tank is that when we put in the oversized steering box,
Oh, it pushes it up and out.
it interfered.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we actually had to mount the overflow tank a half inch higher. So this is an OE
Wrench.
replacement fan clutch, so it should be.
It should be.
Yeah, the fan clutch is for TJ. The fan isn't.
Right. Okay. So yeah, 36 millimeter wrench. At a parts store, you can get a fan clutch wrench that has like 4 sizes. That's what I have at my house. But yeah, 36 millimeter. Yeah, I was a little concerned that the fan blades were being held in place, but that's an alignment and a depth issue. But even so, there's theoretically a possibility we may need to clearance something, depending on how it sits once we get everything bolted down.
What are we doing?
Adjusting. So I was spinning the fan by hand, and it was rubbing on the shroud at just one point. And there's probably a little bit of adjustability in this, but we've got it tight, so now we gotta loosen it.
It probably has something to do with the fact that this is a Explorer fan too.
Well, I mean, there's that.
There's that possibility, although the fan is the right size, it's the right diameter.
I mean, there's plenty of clearance on this side. It's on that side. So it's a little off center, which means the shroud is probably a little off center.
It's not
Gotcha.
Not quite where it needs to be.
Okay. The amount of shiny now getting in under this hood is really rather impressive. Of course, it's not going to stay that way for long. By the way, the reason why they're over there rounding up bolts is a lesson. When you go to the hardware store and you get washers and you take the bolt to get them, don't forget the bolt at the hardware store. Yeah, bring it home. So they're looking for another bolt. Right, first checkaroo to see if the fan is now clearancing.
It appears to be. I'm not hearing or seeing any problems. Okay, and I've got quite a bit there. Now let me use my finely calibrated finger to test body clearance. Okay, we do have more clearance at the top than the bottom, but we have a lot more clearance at the bottom than we used to.
tightening down the fan. Kenneth providing all the assistance he can with his one arm right now.
Yeah, and we are on as tight as we can get.
And that's a self-tightening bolt, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, what's next?
Okay.
It's Miller time.
Oh boy.
So go ahead and finish up putting the radiator back together with the coolant bottle. That's a screwdriver and a hose. And yeah, you can see how the notch there is kind of above. And that's because we had to raise the coolant bottle to make room for the steering gear when we put the big bore PSC kit in. So we're going to do the starter, get that done, and then we'll come back up and deal with re-terminating these ground wires.
Because it's tedious and boring and a pain in the butt. So that is the end we're replacing?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to turn that ring into a spade.
So, one spade terminal.
That didn't take much time at all. So
Nope.
just put it back in the wrap and,
Well, let it cool down first.
well, of course. And then we'll grab a starter.
So yeah, you can see. So this nose goes in the hole there, and this little gear here will just rest here. But then when you hit the starter, the bendix pushes the. Is it the bendix that pushes the?
The bendix.
Yeah, pushes the gear forward, and that then engages with the teeth in there, and the motor's spinning, and so it that's what actually causes it to crank the engine. So we want to put the battery in and test fire.
You can do that.
Or
these
do
are
we
not
wanna
these
finish
these are
this?
not necessary, and the battery won't be in the way. Wrap
So
those where they won't be in the way.
okay, now it's time to assemble. Over the battery terminal. And then, okay, so that goes somewhere else that I know where that goes. Okay. We need a socket. Well, and I did catch a little spark as it went back together, so.
Reconnect the ECU.
Yeah, what do you need that for?
Good catch, Kenneth.
Well, there's nothing happened.
Okay.
Now you can try turning.
I'm assuming just turn it to accessory.
Open the door, see if the light comes on.
Oh, that's a good thing to do too. Okay. So we've reached a point where I said earlier, it's either going to go poof or it's going to go vroom. Let's see what it does.
Yep. We've got power, so
Okay.
hit in, see if it starts.
That was perfect. Yeah.
It worked.
Yep.
And you guys were right. No check engine lights.
Okay, let's get the air intake on.
Turns on.
I'm not hearing anything under here that sounds wrong. I'm definitely hearing a lot of intake, but
Yeah, the airflow through the intake is loud.
I'm not hearing anything squeaky, grindy from the front.
Okay, we could do these if you want.
That would be the next step, is deal with all of these random grounds.
Or do we just want to, honestly, we could,
Put a bolt.
wouldn't hurt to just crimp a bigger end on this. And just, we've got plenty of bolt,
Oh,
and just put it right there.
right back to the battery where it was.
Yeah.
We can do that too.
I mean, it's not the best way to do it, but it's either that or have a whole bunch of wires running over here. Or stretching them to run over here, or over there, or over there, or over there.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to there's a bunch of wires that need to get to a ground.
Yes.
And they're really not that picky about,
Yeah, ground is ground.
yeah, ground is ground is ground.
So, okay.
What'd you do, Roy?
I did a bunch of stripping.
Yeah, you did. So you put new ring terminals on all of the accessory lighting that Kenneth put together in phase 4.
Right.
Yep, and that way they will fit over these newer, bigger bolts on the terminal.
Right.
We just didn't show you all the stripping and crimping because,
It's
well,
just stripping
YouTube
and
guidelines.
Spread them out a little bit so they seat a little better.
And it's pretty obvious now why we went to the longer bolts. So final look at the connections. I know, we've got a weirdo loop there, but Roy, you were explaining that if I was to get a shorter cable,
It would be that
it'd
long.
be like 3 inches long, and that causes all sorts of other problems.
And so this wouldn't come off very easily. With this, we have room to move it.
And should be able to close the hood just fine. Over
Yeah.
there, you get a primo example of why we like these connectors and why we went with the longer bolt. I mean, look at how everything is just nice on its own thing. And to actually take it off the terminal, I don't have to disturb any of that. It stays together, none of those wires fall apart. So if I take the terminal off at any point, everything's contained, and I like that idea.
Yep.
Which I did not get with the OE.
And there's no good way to run that many grounds.
No.
Um,
So does this complete this upgrade?
it should, except for testing.
Well, yes, of course, we do need to
You
test.
need to make sure that all your accessories work.
I agree. But let's take,
Accessorize.
I like that idea. We'll get the hood closed with that, but real quick, I just want to show all the shiny new stuff that we put on her on this phase. So, new cabling from K Suspension. Also from K Suspension, a new bracket.
Shiny.
Gorgeous, gorgeous high performance alternator, which is why the bigger cabling from JS alternators. A new fan, and from it's actually a 9-blade fan for a Ford Explorer. And down there, can't see it really well, fan clutch. And definitely can't see it, but it's kind of down there. The new JA Performance starter, high torque starter. So lots of goodies on this one little fix. And fingers crossed, this is what I need to fix her problem of not wanting to run when she gets her front end in the air.
So we're gonna see if we let the magic smoke out. We're testing accessories now.
Take it to the accessory position.
Upper lights,
Yeah, I'd say that's working.
cooler lights,
Ah, that's working.
rear dust lights,
Yep.
Rear dust lights.
rear spotlights,
Yep.
Oof.
rock lights,
Yep.
Shiny.
seat heater I'm testing now, compressor,
Making noise.
Oh, go back to compressor. Yep.
Okay, both of them.
my check gauges just came on. Battery is getting low.
Okay, crank it. Turn it off. Okay.
Okay, more DRLs. And obviously the dome light works.
There's only 2 problems left.
2 problems left. You gotta
The CB and the loose nut behind the wheel.
Yeah, that second problem is
Never could have get fixed.
If anything, you're building this rig so she can get even looser. Oh, wait a minute. Should I have said that?